He's only 15 years old, how could he do such a terrible thing? In Su Mianmian's memory, this younger brother was a top student who usually kept to himself. But given the Su family's background, there was no need to let their only son do dangerous things, right? Hua Ting also wanted to know the answer to this question. Before he married Su Mianmian, he investigated the Su family and found no problems. However, it seems that the investigation was not thorough enough. Mianmian, you're still too naive, Hua Ting said with a sigh. Uncle. This is in the car. He sat down, reached out and pulled Su Mianmian over, hugging her on his lap, his chest pressed against her chest, and his arms around her waist. The rest of his words were all swallowed by Hua Ting's lips. Su Mianmian blushed and awkwardly wiggled her hips, feeling very uncomfortable. Su Mianmian's face turned even redder. She looked up and saw that the driver was very cleverly pulling down the soundproof panel. Even so, it still makes people blush and their hearts race, doesn't it? Then go home and continue. Hua Ting bit her and whispered. Su Mianmian opened her eyes wide and patted Hua Ting's shoulder hard. Hua Ting, of course, didn't care about this level of resistance at all, easily defusing it, and pulled Su Mianmian into his arms, kissing her passionately. When they got home, her legs felt weak for some reason that she couldn't say. That's so embarrassing. She didn't forget the driver's look when she got out of the car. They obviously know what happened to them. Where's Dong Dong? Su Mianmian looked around but didn't see him. Normally, if Su Mianmian comes back, Dong Dong would have already come running out happily, but I don't know what's wrong with him today. The young master in the toy room. The butler said somewhat awkwardly. Young master, he's not in a good mood today. Su Mianmian looked up at Hua Ting and said. Uncle, let's go see Dong Dong. Even if Dong Dong is precocious, he is still a child. Hua Ting refused, replying. I have to go to the company, you go ahead. All right then. Su Mianmian nodded. Where is the toy room? Madam, please come with me. The butler said politely. Su Mianmian followed him to Dong Dong's toy room. The housekeeper led her to the door and then left. Why are there such dangerous-looking places in the house? Dong Dong, are you there? The doors unlocked. She expected to find a whimsical children's playground, but instead it turned out to be a high-tech laboratory. I'm coming in. There were many machines inside that she didn't know the names of. When Su Mianmian came in, she accidentally kicked a round trash can, which made a yelp. Su Mianmian was so frightened that she took a step back, watching the trash can spin around in place, then a blue flash came from its forehead, followed by a horn sound. What's this? It's so noisy! Dong Dong, how do I turn it off? Su Mianmian was so frightened that she took a step back, watching the trash can spin around her. Humph, Mimi, you finally decided to come back. Dong Dong came out from inside and, seeing that it was Su Mianmian, said with some displeasure. You already have a son, how can you spend the night outside? I heard you're unhappy, is it because I wasn't home last night? After Dong Dong finished speaking, she realized Su Mianmian's intention, puffed out her chubby cheeks, and said unhappily. No, that's not it. I'm just worried that you and Daddy's relationship is in trouble. The beginning of a relationship crisis is when one person is often not home. Su Mianmian reached out and gently rubbed Dong Dong's head, saying softly. Honey, I think you should watch less of those messy TV dramas, it would be better for your growth. Dong Dong lowered her head and said softly. Actually, today is our kindergarten's parents' day. You all don't know that. I'm the only one in the whole class who's alone. I wanted to tell you about this last night. So that's why Dong Dong was unhappy. Su Mianmian felt extremely guilty. Dong Dong, I'm sorry. It's okay, I'm a man, I won't care about such a small thing. Dong Dong stood up straight, puffed out his little chest, and wagged his tail, saying in a childish voice. But, if you guys come, I'll definitely be number one. Although he said he didn't care, his tone still carried a hint of accusation. Hearing this, Su Mianmian felt even more distressed. Dong Dong, I'm sorry, I don't know how to make you happy. Dong Dong's little tail twitched, and his eyes lit up. He said. Mimi, there's a place I've always wanted to go, but Daddy won't let me go. Dong Dong blinked and asked expectantly. Take me there. No one can resist Dong Dong's adorable eyes, and Su Mianmian was no exception. However, after she and Dong Dong arrived at this place, she wished she could swallow back what she had just said. I know Daddy goes there often. I once saw a business card in his pocket. Su Mianmian looked up at the magnificent shop name and thought to herself. Does this uncle frequent places like this? The little lamb is a little angry. He even comes to a place like this. Who knows how many little devils are in there? She made up her mind. She would sleep with Dong Dong tonight, tomorrow night, and for countless nights to come. Snort. Mimi, let's go in. At this moment, he couldn't wait to go in. Dong Dong, we can't go in, this place isn't suitable for children. Su Mianmian said with difficulty. But before Su Mianmian could finish speaking, she was interrupted by Dong Dong's voice. Mimi, look, it's Daddy. Su Mianmian looked in the direction he was speaking and, sure enough, saw Hua Ting leading several of his men inside. Very good. You said you'd go to the office? So you're working at a nightclub now? Su Mianmian is very angry. Dong Dong, let's go. She took Dong Dong's hand. She said. If I get into an argument with your dad, stay away from us and don't get scared. She first gave Dong Dong a heads up. Mimi, don't worry, if you really divorce Daddy, I'll definitely stay with you. That way, Daddy will become a pitiful old man who has lost both his wife and his son. The two walked forward while talking, but they were stopped by security guards before they even reached the door. Stop, this store does not accept minors. Can we just go in and take a look and then come right out? My husband is inside. Su Mianmian asked pitifully, her eyes wide. Yes. My dad is inside. Uncle, please let us in. Dong Dong chimed in. The security guard looked at Su Mianmian, then at Dong Dong, pointed at Su Mianmian, and asked. So, she's your mother? Yes. Dong Dong nodded vigorously. Su Mianmian hesitated. She was conflicted. The security guard simply replied with 2 words, clearly not wanting to deal with them anymore. Security guards have brains too, you know? Using such an excuse is utterly insulting to people's intelligence. How old are you? How come you have such a big son? Don't be ridiculous. The security guard advised with a displeased look. I am a stepmother. A moment later, a stretched Rolls-Royce pulled up, the door opened, and a man who was over 1.9 meters tall stepped out. Su Mianmian figured she probably wouldn't be able to get in today, and was just about to grab Dong Dong and leave when she noticed Dong Dong running towards the man. Uncle! Uncle! Do you remember me? Dong Dong said familiarly. He had handsome features, but was very thin, the kind of thin that looked unnatural. What was most memorable about him were his eyes. He has a pair of captivating peach blossom eyes. Dong Dong was completely unaware of the change in the surrounding atmosphere. He was currently enjoying the joy of recognizing his relatives. The previously quiet setting seemed to pause in slow motion because of Dong Dong's voice. The man lowered his head, glanced at Dong Dong, smiled wickedly, and said, I remember you. That's right. Last time I turned off your company's firewall and even drew a pleasant goat on it. This sounds more like a grudge between them. Dong Dong! Su Mianmian's mouth dropped open in shock. Su Mianmian was sweating profusely as she listened, and all she wanted to do was quickly bring Dong Dong to her side. The man curled the corners of his lips into a devilish smile. Oh, I know you, Hua Ting's son. Is your name Cici or Bebe? He asked. Let go of Dong Dong. Su Mianmian mustered up the courage to take Dong Dong back from his hands. Su Mianmian glared at him angrily and said in a stern voice. Sir, pinching him like that is making him very uncomfortable. Upon hearing this, the man glanced at Su Mianmian. The man looked at Su Mianmian with interest and smiled. Are you Hua Ting's wife? I'm just about to go find Hua Ting. I'll take you there. Suddenly, Su Mianmian felt a black wind sweep over her face, and she seemed to see black wings spread out behind this person. In the blink of an eye, she saw him looking at her with a half-smile. This person is terrifying. After saying that, without caring about Su Mianmian's reaction, he carried Dong Dong inside with graceful movements, as if flowing water. After a moment of surprise, Su Mianmian quickly followed behind him. The group walked in with great fanfare. However, once they went inside, Su Mianmian immediately wilted. It was her first time at a bar, and she noticed that everyone inside was dressed in a completely different style from what she was wearing. With deafening music playing in her ears and alluring figures swaying on the dance floor, Su Mianmian was completely dumbfounded and almost couldn't keep up with the vampire's pace. This place isn't suitable for you, I'll take you to my place. Fortunately, considering that Su Mianmian and Dong Dong were both minors, the man found a private room away from the dance floor and sat down. After the door was closed, all the noise was shut out. This doesn't seem like a suitable place for children. Su Mianmian covered Dong Dong's face in utter embarrassment, saying to the man, "Please call to Huiting right away, thank you." The man glanced at them, picked up his phone, dialed a number, and maliciously turned it on speakerphone. The call was answered quickly. "You're really impatient. Scumbag. Your sister is in my hands." Hua Ting chuckled sinisterly. The man laughed too. He glanced at Su Mianmian and Dong Dong and replied, "What a coincidence. Your wife and son are also in my hands. Don't believe me? Fine, I'll let them talk to you." The man handed over the phone. Su Mianmian was completely terrified. What's going on here? I have a bad feeling. Oh my god. What should I do now? Dong Dong, however, was completely unaffected. He exclaimed loudly, "Daddy, I want to eat strawberry cake, but they said they don't have any here." Lei Outyan glanced at Dong Dong, who was still wagging his tail, and laughed. "Hua Ting, your son is really interesting, he's nothing like you." "Where are you?" Hua Ting asked coldly. "I don't want to tell you, find it yourself." Lei Outyan said, then hung up the phone with an air of arrogance. This guy's a lunatic. I feel like I'm doomed. At this moment, although Su Mianmian was still not quite clear about the situation, she was certain of one thing: this person must have a grudge against the uncle. She reached out and covered Dong Dong's mouth, shrinking back in fear. After hanging up Hua Ting's call, Lei Outyan was in a particularly good mood. He said to the beautiful woman sitting beside him, "Bring up your store's most expensive red wine. Then go buy a strawberry cake for this child." Lei Outyan said, "His father will come and pay the bill." Okay, the beautiful woman exited politely. Lei Outyan picked up a glass of red wine that had been poured, elegantly pushed it in front of Su Mianmian, and said, "Give it a try, your husband will pay." Su Mianmian glanced at the red wine, then turned her gaze back to Lei Outyan's face, where she saw him smiling at her with a friendly, and wicked, expression. She became even more determined not to drink that glass of wine. Even if they didn't poison him, they certainly didn't have good intentions. Su Mianmian shook her head vigorously, indicating that she would not drink it, absolutely not. Dong Dong looked on with longing. This was the legendary wine, something that adults love to drink. Now that he had the chance to drink it, he certainly didn't want to give it up. He stretched out his claws, quickly grabbed the drink, took a big gulp.